Hey, it's Zane. Welcome back. Thanks for tuning in. Hope you've had a great week. In today's video, I want to talk about the three main reasons why people fail in Bitcoin. How is it that you could lose your Bitcoin? And this is really important because there's a lot of noise out there, and it's really important that you sift through that noise and get back to the absolute fundamentals of what Bitcoin is, why it's important, the problems that it solves, and how you can avoid losing your Bitcoin. Now, why is this such an important thing to harp on? It's important because I certainly believe over the next 10 years that Bitcoin is going to 50 to 100x from here. And that means that we're going to get to somewhere between a $5 million and a $10 million US Bitcoin. And so, there's people like Peter Dunworth who thinks that we've got 100x locked in for the next 10 years and 1,000x in the next 15 years. And people like Michael Saylor who believe that in the next 20 years, we're going to 200x. We're going to be sitting at about a $21 million Bitcoin. And so whichever way you look at this, and the more you understand this and the fact that Bitcoin is absolute scarcity, we've never seen absolute scarcity before in a monetary protocol, in a monetary technology. Bitcoin is the first of its kind humanity has ever seen. And so because of its absolute scarcity, because we have unlimited demand coming, we know that Bitcoin's value, its price, is going to continue to grow exponentially. And so you want to be around to benefit from that growth. If you want to create generational wealth, if you want to have a comfortable retirement, to be absolutely financially secure and never have to work again, if you want to leave a financial legacy for your kids and your family, then you have to do this right. And so these are the three big mistakes. And I've made a few notes here I want to cover off with you real quick here this morning. And, I do one-on-one calls with people every single week on Zoom. And most people, they're fairly new in their journey. Some people have been in Bitcoin a little while, but they've made a few mistakes and they're really looking to level things up and make progress. Sometimes set up a Bitcoin-friendly retirement account in the form of a self-managed super fund that can buy Bitcoin, self-custody, all of these things, and I can help with that. So if you're interested in that, you'd like my guidance, just book a call with me on Zoom. Typically go for about an hour, and I know you'll get tremendous value from that. Just look for my booking link in the show notes. But let's talk about this. Now, problem number one, the big mistakes that people make, the biggest mistake is a lack of education. A lack of education. Bitcoin is not like a stock or a share. There is no counterparty with Bitcoin. There is nobody to call. Bitcoin is decentralized. It's not centralized like the share market, like the stock market. You don't need to rely on your broker or financial planner to manage your Bitcoin. And so education is really important to understand what this asset is, the problems that it solves, and how to secure it correctly. And that's not something that you can achieve in 5 minutes. It's not something you can learn from your best mate at the pub. It's something you have to learn about yourself. So you have to be inquisitive enough to go on a hunt for learning yourself. And until you do that, you won't understand and really appreciate the value of the asset that you hold. And if you don't appreciate the value of the asset you hold, at the first market correction or the first bit of noise that you hear that maybe contradicts a belief that you have around Bitcoin or had in the beginning that challenges that belief, then you're going to lose your Bitcoin. And so education is absolutely everything in my mind. It's the foundation. It's where you should be spending most of your time. It's certainly where I continue to spend most of my time, continuing to upgrade my knowledge, my education. And I just can't emphasize enough how important this is. So education, number one. And if you was coming to me and saying, what are the top 2 or 3 resources you'd recommend to start my learning journey, I would definitely suggest, number one, The Big Print by Lawrence Lepard, It's a book. You'll find it on Amazon. You can download it for Audible or put it onto your Kindle. But I'd highly recommend The Big Print by Lawrence Lepard. Probably the best resource out there because of how Lawrence articulates the problem and then the solution. Really, part one of the book is understanding the history of central banking, what drives inflation, the problems with fiat currencies, the way that they are debased, controlled, and the monetary policy is controlled by a handful of unelected bureaucrats, typically people behind closed doors, dictating the monetary policy, how it funds the war machine. All of these things, how it drives the problems in society, the growing wealth gap, the cost of living crisis, the housing crisis, all of the things that we're seeing right now. And so understanding that problem, that book is wonderful for that purpose. And then also understanding why we need to return to sound money and why Bitcoin is the new sound money. Not just sound money, but the hardest form of money that humanity has ever seen, because Bitcoin is absolutely scarce. It is a hard cap of 21 million, 100 million Satoshis per Bitcoin. There will never be any more. And it is inherently deflationary, which basically means it's the absolute opposite of the debt-based fiat system, which is inherently inflationary. This is an education, this is a learning curve, this is something you have to spend the time on in order to develop your conviction. So read a book. Number one, The Big Print by Lawrence Lepard. You could download it in 5 minutes flat and you could be reading today. You could be reading the first couple of chapters. The Bitcoin Standard by Saifedean Ammous. Highly encourage you to read that book. It's a little bit more of a grind, but definitely a book that every Bitcoiner should definitely read. I would consider that a mandatory read. And then of course there's podcasts, not just me, but there's awesome podcasts out there. Robin Sayer, he does a daily Bitcoin podcast. You have Simply Bitcoin, you have Robert Breedlove, Michael Saylor, Jeff Booth, Peter Dunworth. There's just so many great people on podcasts in this space that you can learn from, but you just have to be willing to dedicate a little time every week to your learning journey. So education, number one. Number two is people don't realize that they're buying fake Bitcoin. Now, I don't want to alarm you with this because it's really simple to make this mistake. What I mean by this is that people are playing fiat games. They are buying synthetic Bitcoin in a system only for the number go up opportunity, only for the number go up exposure to Bitcoin. So what do we have? We have ETFs, synthetic Bitcoin, exchange traded funds. So the likes of BlackRock, who are the biggest fund managers on earth, can basically own the Bitcoin and then give you exposure to that Bitcoin as a client as part of their financial planning business. They'll give you exposure to Bitcoin through their exchange traded fund, their ETF. And so last year in January 2024, the SEC, the Securities and Exchange Commission in the US, they approved what's known as an ETF, an exchange traded fund, so that Wall Street could now essentially profit from Bitcoin. And so what we have now is these institutions, the biggest capital managers on earth, are now hoarding Bitcoin, putting Bitcoin into their balance sheets, and then they're essentially offering their clients synthetic Bitcoin in the form of an exchange traded fund so that they get exposure to the number go up. The problem is you don't own real Bitcoin when you buy an ETF. Likewise, when you buy a Bitcoin treasury company, as good as their performance has been and as much of a genius that the likes of Michael Saylor is, I would never buy a Bitcoin treasury company thinking that I've got real Bitcoin, because I understand the difference. If all you want to do is get exposure to number go up, by all means buy an ETF, buy a Bitcoin treasury company such as Strategy B, formerly known as MicroStrategy, MetaPlanet, Capital 21. Knock yourself out, you can do that. But I would definitely implore you to get your mind around the fact that if you do that, you only have access to one of the benefits of Bitcoin, which is its number go up technology, but you don't actually really own that Bitcoin. An institution owns it. If something goes wrong with the institution, typically they're very highly leveraged plays, a lot of financial engineering going on behind the scenes, and essentially all you're doing is you're playing inside a fiat casino. And it's the very thing that we're actually trying to avoid. It's the very thing we're trying to escape from. And so in my mind, why on earth would you play in a system, in a debt-based system with all of the leverage and financial engineering that is happening that you have no say in or control over just to get exposure to number go up? We've seen in the past that these things can, will, and do go bad. And so what I'm saying to you is, if you want to buy a Bitcoin treasury company, an ETF, go for it, but just don't feel or know that you are buying real Bitcoin by doing that. Buying real Bitcoin is the real revolution, because you owning your own keys to your Bitcoin is you being on the path to true self-sovereignty. You don't get that with an ETF or a treasury company. So there are people out there buying fake Bitcoin thinking they've got Bitcoin, when in reality they don't have real Bitcoin. They have exposure to it, but somebody else owns that Bitcoin, not them. Really important point. Not your keys, not your coins. And this leads me to the next point, and this is where many people fail in Bitcoin, is that they don't own the keys to their Bitcoin. Now, what does that mean? Well, it means that they either have their Bitcoin, what they think is their Bitcoin, stored with a treasury company or an ETF, and something goes wrong with that institution, and thereby they lose their money that way, or they leave their Bitcoin on an exchange and the exchange blows up. And we know that this does, and will happen. It happened last cycle. We had FTX, we had Celsius, we had BlockFi. These are institutions that people trusted with their money, with their Bitcoin. And what happened? They failed, and thereby the people lost their Bitcoin. Now, it would have been really simple for them to avoid this by taking self-custody of their Bitcoin. But people get complacent, they get lazy, they're used to having other people manage their money, outsourcing their wealth, their banking, etc. And people learn a hard lesson because they don't understand, and this gets back to education, that Bitcoin is an opportunity for us to be our own bank, for us to be the head of security of our own financial life. That is the true revolution of Bitcoin, not the number go up. The number go up is just a byproduct of digital scarcity, of absolute scarcity. And yes, it's great. It means we can accelerate our way to wealth a lot quicker when we store a meaningful amount of our long-term savings, our retirement accounts, financial capital in Bitcoin. Yes, we're going to get wealthier a lot quicker. That's a byproduct. However, if you're going to have all of that wealth in the central control system, in the debt-based fiat system, basically you have all of your assets exposed. It doesn't matter how much fiat wealth you have. The true revolution of Bitcoin is self-custody. You own the keys. You have the keys to the vault, to the Bitcoin that sits on the giant ledger in cyberspace, and only you and a counterparty who you may entrust can access it. However, if you leave it with an exchange, and that exchange, something goes wrong, they could freeze your funds, they could hold your funds, they could have be inundated with customer inquiries, and they could put a hold on withdrawals for a time being. There could be capital controls instituted by a government, and these exchanges who have your money will get caught up in all of that. And so you need an exchange to onboard into Bitcoin, or a brokerage. Typically you need to engage these institutions to acquire Bitcoin, and that's fine, no problem with that. But just understand that the name of the game is to get your Bitcoin off the exchange, off the brokerage as quick as you possibly can and into self-custody. Only then can you truly be self-sovereign. This is so important. So when it comes to self-custody, just understand that there are levels to it. Number one would be to get your hands on a hot wallet. Now, a hot wallet is essentially a software wallet, an app that you'll download from the App Store onto your phone or to your desktop computer, and that will generate the keys to your Bitcoin. It will then generate an address, a receiving address for you to instruct the exchange or your broker to send the Bitcoin into your own self-custody. And that's what's known as a hot wallet. It's not the most secure way of holding Bitcoin, but it certainly is more secure than leaving it on an exchange. The next level is to get set up with a cold wallet or a cold storage device. And a cold storage device generates its keys offline. Remember, a hot wallet generates the keys online, a cold wallet generates the keys offline. And so it's more secure because there's less risk and surface area attacks, malware, hacks, those kinds of things. And so you want to have your Bitcoin, particularly your long-term storage Bitcoin, your retirement account, your savings, stored in cold storage. So you want the keys generated by an offline cold storage device. Now, in my opinion, and there's general consensus on this around the Bitcoin community, you want to find three key features in a cold storage device. Number one, air-gapped, separate from the internet. Typically, it runs via QR code, talks to a software application on your phone or your desktop, but the device itself that secures the keys to your Bitcoin is air-gapped, meaning it's never connected via cable to the internet. Really important. It's actually not connected to the internet at all. It simply communicates with your software app via QR code. Secondly, open source, a wallet where the code is completely verifiable on the network without any funny business going on in between. So you want air-gapped open source and you want Bitcoin only. You want a device that is Bitcoin only, not a device that supports all of these other myriad of other casino crypto coins that are out there. Bitcoin only. Again, it minimizes and eliminates the risk of malware, hacks, and other problems that can occur when you commingle your pristine collateral, which is what Bitcoin is, with all of these other chains, many of which we never know are going to be here from one year to the next. So I want to leave it there today. I just wanted to give you some things to think about. So just to recap, the only way you can fail in Bitcoin is to not educate yourself, to not buy real Bitcoin, and then number three, to not take self-custody of your Bitcoin. If you avoid these mistakes, then you'll win in Bitcoin. Zoom out, have a long time horizon, and understand that the true revolution of Bitcoin is not just number go up, but is actually self-custody, being in control, being the head of security of your own financial life, and putting protocols in place that enable your significant others to have access to your Bitcoin in the event that something happens to you. And this is really the true revolution of Bitcoin when done right. If you need to book a call with me, see a link in my show notes. I'd love to meet you. Get on Zoom. I'll answer all your questions, point you in the right direction, help you with the next best simple steps, and then you can go from there. So I want to thank you for tuning in. Hope you got value today. Please like, share, and subscribe. Other than that, I'll see you in the next one. This is Zane signing out. Bye for now.